we want to shift the paradigm to be purposeful women of God. So join us as we change our focus from me to thee.
Hello and welcome to the Purposeful Women of God podcast. I'm Ashley.
And I'm Tabitha.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. I wanted to mention, because a lot of this is new, and it's new for our listeners that have been following us for almost 2 years now. Can you believe that we're getting really close to
Almost
the 2-year mark?
Yeah.
That's so hard for me to believe.
I know.
But we have a YouTube channel now. So
Woo-hoo.
all of our videos that we're doing for the podcast, well, I should say we are videoing all of our podcast episodes and putting them on YouTube. So
yeah,
check it out if you just
if you're listening on Apple or
faces.
Spotify, check out YouTube. We try and post the verses that go along with it. So more of a visual learning if you are more of a visual learner.
Yep.
Check us out on YouTube. Also, make sure that you go to our website. There will be a pop-up box that will allow you to put in your email address.
Yes.
We do not spam you. We do not even sell
I don't have time to spam
I know,
you guys.
we don't have time for all that. But we are sharing some resources that go along with our study each week. Now, you may be thinking, well, y'all are already over halfway done, because if you're just now tuning in, we are, goodness, I don't even know what week we're on. This is like seven.
Yeah. Episode 7 in the series.
Yeah, so you've missed 6 of those. So if you subscribe now, you'll pick up where we are. However, our goal is to have something completed by the end that will be available for purchase, that you could be able to get all of that information. So that's the goal, but go ahead and join our email list so that you can stay up to date with everything that we're sharing.
Yeah, I mean, we hope to do this throughout the series that we do this year. It may be a little different, it may look a little different, but we're still hoping to provide some extra tools and resources. So you want to get on that list.
And another thing that I do want to say is that each week we've been posting a question box on Instagram, and we're trying to on Facebook, but sometimes it doesn't always cooperate.
Yeah, Facebook's not as easy sometimes.
We are not tech savvy, so we're just learning all of this as we go.
Yep.
But anytime that we post that question box, we're asking if you have any other questions in regards to the lessons that we have done. And at the very end of this study, we have about 3 or 4 more weeks, we are going to do a bonus episode, a question and answer episode. So what we want to know is if you have other questions that maybe we've not answered in our episodes, send us those questions and we'll do a deep dive into that, and we are going to do a Q&A. It'll be unscripted, and we'll just answer some of those questions that you have. So we want this to be interactive as much as possible.
We need questions.
Yeah.
We got to have questions.
Yes.
Yeah,
so make sure that you're engaging with us on social media. Yeah.
I know you do, right? I would probably have questions. I don't know.
We'll
I don't
see.
know if I would.
Maybe we're being thorough enough.
Hey,
but.
I love that though too. I love that though too.
And that brings us to today. So if you are just now joining us, our series is Who is Jesus to You? We began our study by looking at who is Jesus to the Christian. And then we're taking a deep dive into all other religions and comparing them to Christianity and seeing what we all believe. If we believe the same things, do we believe in the same Jesus? Do we worship the same God? And I think that what we are uncovering and discovering is that there is no other religion like Christianity. Everything else points to self, points to a works-based religion, but Christianity is the one that points to Jesus.
That's right.
Everything points to Him.
Yep.
And we do work as Christians, and we do serve Him, and we do all of these things, but we do it because we are saved, because we are followers of Jesus, not to save us.
That's right. Because we first have the faith. Now it's time to do the work for the Lord.
Yeah. So today we're actually going to be studying 2 religions. We're looking at Hindu and Buddhist.
Yes.
And these are...
and I'm excited because as we've mentioned before, Tabitha and I take these lessons, we split them, we research them. Neither one of us has time to study out 12 lessons, in a series. So we take them, we split them, we do the research, and this is the episode that Tabitha has done a lot of research and study into. So I'm really excited about it because I'm really seeing it for one of the first times as well.
So I will say this is not a super deep dive into either one of these religions. That's why we're covering both of them. But they are similar in some of their thought processes, some of the way they do things. So that's why we're kind of bunching them into one. But before we get started, because we are going to talk about yoga today.
Oh, okay.
So before we get into that, Ashley, have you ever joined a fitness class, a workout class? What is your favorite workout?
Girl, don't ask me what my favorite. I don't work out. I don't work out, and I've never really taken any classes. There was one time my mom and I went to a yoga class. And we were starting to get into yoga. Mom was really, really wanting to get into it. So I was like, hey, let's go. There was a class in town. It was a hot yoga class.
Oh, no.
So we get in there, new beginners. I was very impressed with myself because I could still, get my knees onto my elbows and, go up into a headstand. I could still do that. And so Mom was looking at me, and I was like, no. But by the time we left there, I thought I was going to die. I was sweating. I was sick. Do you ever feel like that when you first start working out? You get so sick.
Yeah.
Makes me that's why I don't work out. I just get sick. But I remember that. That sticks out in my mind so much that we had a lot of laughs. We had a lot of fun. But it was so hot. If you've never done a hot yoga class, I don't even know why you would put yourself through that. We didn't go back. That was enough for us. I'm like,
well, after you learn about today, I'm glad you didn't go back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
really?
Yeah.
Well, let's go.
Yeah. All right. So let's go ahead and dive in.
Hindu is one of the oldest religions and the third largest of the world's major religions after Christianity. I find that very interesting. And honestly, you probably will too after you hear some of their beliefs. According to tfhc.nt.gov, Hinduism is a faith as well as a way of life, a worldview, and philosophy upholding the principle and true living for the Indian diaspora throughout the world. So about 80% of the Indian population from India regard themselves as Hindu.
When we say Indian, this is not Native American Indian. This is from India.
Yeah. Okay, that's good to make that distinction. So Hindus first settled in Australia during the 19th century to work on cotton and sugar plantations and as merchants. In Australia, the Hindu philosophy is adopted by Hindu centers and temples, meditation and yoga groups, and a number of other spiritual groups.
So
there may be a little bit more to this yoga, huh?
Yeah, so when we talk about yoga, this is something that originated from Hindu. And so it has a lot to do with, of course, spiritual awakening.
Right.
And that's basically what yoga is. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but I'm going to say something that might be a little controversial, but as Christians, we should not engage in yoga.
Wow.
Yes.
Hey, look, we talk about those stumbling block things or those things that can lead into other things. I don't want to go there. And if that could be one of those things,
Well, and I'm not, the poses or the workouts themselves may not all be bad.
Right.
I've taken yoga classes before too. Yeah. And, you can go with some girlfriends and you can have fun and you can laugh. But just from the origins of yoga, I would say that as a Christian, it's probably something we should stay away from. And we do get a little bit more into that, but I just thought I would go ahead and just spoiler alert, as Christians, you should not participate in yoga. And listen, I've got to take a step back as well because I've done it.
Yep.
I've done it too, and you don't know what you don't know.
Nope. I think we all know what down dog is. I mean, that's the only pose I think I know.
Yes, there you go.
Yep.
Cobra.
Okay,
right?
cobra.
Yeah.
Something about a tree,
I
right?
don't
know, y'all.
know.
We really don't know a whole lot about yoga.
No. Right, so as we begin to look at Hinduism, there is no known prophet or founder of Hinduism, which I found very interesting.
Yeah.
Like, it was really hard to find its origin.
Very interesting.
Yeah, so it incorporates an extraordinary diverse range of beliefs, rituals, and practices. They have numerous schools of thought, but no founder and no organizational hierarchy or structure and no central administration, but only the concept of duty or dharma. And dharma is just the social and ethical system by which an individual organizes his or her life.
That sounds similar to like kind of what we talked about last week, right? And some of these other religions.
Yeah.
Like,
so I feel like the Hindu religion and the Buddhist religion really parallels a lot with Scientology, actually.
Yeah, I'm seeing that so far.
Yeah. So here's the confusing part about Hinduism is that they're considered monotheistic, which that they believe in one God, as well as polytheistic.
How can you be both? Like you said, I guess that is confusing.
It's confusing. So basically, from what I understand, and I hope that I'm explaining this correctly, is that they do believe in an ultimate or a supreme being. This is what they would call the Brahman, I believe.
Okay.
But they also believe in other gods as well. So they have one major ultimate being, one supreme being, one God above all, but then they have all these little gods down here. So they follow the Hindus' 4 sacred writings, the 4 Vedas, I believe is how you say it, which are considered to be divine in origin and the direct transmission of God's word. Once again, it was not delivered through a prophet, so I don't know how they even have all of this.
Yeah.
Hindus also believe in a code of conduct and other practices that I'm really not even going to attempt to pronounce. And they also, so they have several books that they glean from. One of those being, it's like 6 times longer than the length of the Bible. So lots of study material that they have. But yeah, they all have some words that I could not even pronounce. So I wasn't even going to put it in here. So in order to become a Hindu, you can be born into a Hindu family.
Okay.
You can just begin practicing the faith. You can just declare that you are Hindu. And there is no formal conversion or excommunication of the faith if you decide that Hinduism is not for you.
Which is different than what we saw in regards to the Muslim faith.
Right. Very different. And so I will, before we get into the rest of it, I will say, as I looked into these religions, as a Christian, it seems like how in the world can one even follow these? Because a lot of it just doesn't make sense in my mind.
Right.
But Ashley and I were actually just riding down the road talking through all of this. And I'm like, I don't understand how people can follow these religions. But I think like with Hindu, it's very like calming.
Yeah.
There's a lot of focus on meditation. They're very kind people typically. It centers around peace and harmony and, no fighting, no wars, no arguments, those kinds of things. So I think it is appealing to people because it's just peaceful and harmony.
Yeah. Peaceful religion instead of some of the other things that we've looked at.
Yeah. So why don't you share some of the key beliefs of the Hindu faith?
Okay, so Sanatana Dharma encompasses a set of eternal and universal ethical and moral principles of virtuous and true living and is acceptable whether or not one is born a Hindu. They value truth, right conduct, love, peace, and nonviolence, just as what you were talking about, which sounds great, right?
Yeah, it all sounds good, yeah.
One quote said, "Our beliefs determine our thoughts and attitude and influence our destiny." They believe in universal peace and harmony, basically karma, cause and effect and reincarnation.
Yeah. So basically, if I do good, I will get good. If I do bad, I'll get bad. That's what that karma is.
Just like Scientology.
Yeah. What comes around goes around.
Basically. Yeah. So they seek personal purification by 4 paths. So, we talked about this when other religions, they all have some sort of a system or something to follow to achieve this, some sort of a status. So these are the 4 paths that they seek for personal purification. So number 1, ritualist worship. So chanting of prayers, devotional surrender to a higher ideal. I just wonder, what do they pray to? What do their prayers sound like? Dear Heavenly Father, we pray in Jesus' name. And it's just who are you?
Right.
I don't guess there's no central. Just the God of the universe, I guess. All right, so number 2, through service. Number 3, through yoga and meditation. That's one of their paths to personal purification. Number 4, through inquiry. So getting to know oneself. Once again, like other religions, they're not dogmatic on any of these beliefs, though.
So basically, you can believe whatever you want to. I can call myself a Hindu. I can really believe all of these things. I can attend yoga classes and all of those things. And that's what yoga does. It's really more of, it's an inward, self-serving type thing. I think meditation is great, and we even do that in Christianity. We're supposed to meditate on Scripture. But really, if you don't have something to meditate on, you're looking back into yourself. And so that's what that is all about. And that's why I would say that a Christian probably should not go to a yoga class, because you're taking these spiritual, ritualistic things and you're then reflecting on that as a Christian. And just knowing the origins of it coming from the Hindu faith, I think once again, I think you should probably stay away from it. So gotquestions.org says Hinduism is difficult to compare to Christianity. It represents limitless depth of profundity, a rich history, and an elaborate theology. There is perhaps no religion in the world that is more variegated or ornate. And I think that that's true. That's why, once again, that we put these 2 religions together, because it was really hard to compare to Christianity. You look at a lot of the other ones that we talked about, and they do have a lot of biblical principles in them. But I feel like with these 2, while maybe it's really all about being a good person is really what it boils down to. Theology, mythology, and history are so often blurred together that it becomes difficult to identify where one stops and another begins. So once again, it's hard to find those origins, where it began, who began it, and all of that. So we always ask this question. So who is Jesus to you? Who is Jesus to the Hindu? Hinduism has its share of wise teachers and earthly leaders, but Jesus stands out. Many believe that Jesus was a great spiritual teacher or avatar. So here is, I'm sure y'all have seen the movie Avatar. A lot of people have. That is divine incarnation. That's what avatar means. So they believe that Jesus was a divine incarnation, but that is their extent in belief in Jesus. So basically, they believe that prior to Jesus being born, that he must have been a really great person before, and then he was reincarnated. But they do believe that divinely reincarnated because of his connection to God, I guess. I don't know. One thing that I would like for us to address is that Hinduism and Buddhism also will talk a lot about reincarnation. I want us to address the fact that as Christians, we believe in resurrection. And these other faiths believe in reincarnation. Resurrection and reincarnation are not the same.
No.
So resurrection is based on one life, one death, one mortal body, and then one new or glorified body.
That's right.
Reincarnation believes in multiple lives and multiple deaths. And most often how you live this life will determine what or who you will be in your next life. So I think you talked about Scientology last week, that they believe that you would come back as a person. Hinduism, you could come back as a person, or you might come back as an animal or something like that.
Well, that may be how they're more able to defend reincarnation. Because, if you go and ask somebody who has lost somebody, have you seen them again? If they come back...
I'm sorry, as you're talking about this, we reference Friends a lot. I remember the episode where Phoebe had the cat and she thought it was her mom.
Yes. But I mean, wouldn't it be easier to say, oh, this cat, my mom's in this cat, or my mom's in this dog, versus they come back again as who they were.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen them come back?
Right.
Probably not.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see any research that shows that to have ever happened.
Yeah. I don't know.
So how do they continue to believe in it? I don't know.
Yeah, it sounds kind of crazy. But here is what's difficult with Hindus in sharing your faith. And of course, we always talk about this kind of at the end as well. But they actually may say, if you're sharing your faith, that they accept what you believe. But they will just add it to their belief of all their other gods. So the difficulty is that Jesus then may be another little god among all of their little gods. So when it comes to evangelizing to a Hindu, you have to get to them to a point where they realize that acceptance of Jesus is the only way to get to heaven, and that they have got to forego all of these other little gods that they're worshiping as well.
Right.
And that's hard for them to understand. And it's hard for us to witness to them, because they may be like, yes,
agreeable.
I accept it. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, great. And then you end the conversation, but then in their mind of acceptance, they've just added it to.
Right. Because that's what they know to do.
Yeah, because that's what they know to do is
they don't have any real sound doctrine, nothing that's grounding them in really any faith, so to speak.
Yeah.
So they just add it to their list.
Yeah, so that's the extent that we're really going to talk about the Hindu religion. So now let's take a look at the Buddhist belief.
Okay, so the Buddhists, like the Hindu, also believe in reincarnation, which is the belief that consciousness continues after death and you can be reborn into a new form. So they believe in 4 noble truths. 1, the truth of suffering. So life is suffering. Number 2, the truth of the origination of suffering. Desire is the root cause of suffering, is what they say.
Yeah, so I think this is interesting that they believe that our desire for things is what causes us to have suffering.
I mean, that might not be all false. Number 3, the truth of cessation of suffering. So an end to suffering is possible. And number 4, the truth of the eightfold path. A state of nirvana can be obtained by following this path. So nirvana is an enlightened state that can be obtained by following Buddha's teaching.
So when we talk about this eightfold path, there was something very similar to that in Scientology as well.
Yeah, there was an 8. It was like an 8 dynamic thing. There was 8 dynamics to go through. So, let's
all right.
into that 8.
Yeah. So, in the Buddhist faith, if you hear the word Dharma, Dharma is the teaching of Buddha. Also believe in 3 jewels. Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I hope I'm saying that right, are all revered by Buddhists. Karma, we already talked about. They believe a lot in karma. What goes around comes around. What you do, you get back. And in meditation as well.
So according to bbc.org, Buddhism, a spiritual tradition that focuses on a personal spiritual development and the attainment of a deep insight into the true nature of life. So that's their definition of Buddhism. So 376 million followers are Buddhists worldwide. That seems like a lot.
I know. It is. Wow. It is. But when you look at the different sects of Buddhism.
Sects. Yeah. Theravada Buddhists in Sri Lanka, Cambodia, Thailand. Mahaya Buddhists in Tibet, China, Taiwan, Japan, Korea, Mongolia.
So when you think of Buddhism, it's really very prominent in the Asian communities.
Yeah. So most of the Buddhist sects do not seek to proselytize or preach or to convert other people to their religion.
Yeah. So basically, they're fine with you believe in what you believe, we believe what we believe, and let's just leave each other alone, kind of thing.
Not like the Muslims who are trying to convert everybody to their religion.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So Buddhists have no belief in a personal God.
I did not realize this as we were studying this out.
It's crazy because you would have thought.
I thought Buddha was their God.
Was their God.
Yeah.
Nothing is fixed or permanent, and change is always possible. The path to enlightenment is through practice and development of morality, meditation, and wisdom. So a little about Buddha, because he's in there.
The predominant figure.
Yes, he is the predominant figure. So he was born into a royal family in present-day Nepal over 2,500 years ago. Lived a life of privilege and luxury until one day he left the royal enclosure and encountered for the first time an old man, a sick man, and a corpse. Disturbed by this, he became a monk before adopting the harsh poverty of Indian asceticism. Neither both satisfied him, and he decided to pursue the middle way, which is a life without luxury, but also without poverty. So that would be our middle class.
I mean, that's the only way that I can kind of figure that.
We're
is
not
that
rich.
He was royalty. He ended up becoming
We're not poor. Yeah.
And then neither one of those ways were satisfying. So
that middle class, that middle ground.
Mm-hmm.
So Buddhists believe that one day, while sitting under a Bodhi tree, which is their tree of awakening, Siddhartha, the founder of Buddhism.
So Siddhartha, I don't really know how to pronounce that.
Once again, Tap is throwing me these words that I told her how to pronounce.
This is the man who is Buddha. So from what I understand, based on what they're talking about.
Okay. So he is the man that is Buddha.
Yeah.
This man became deeply absorbed in meditation and reflected on his experience of life until he became enlightened.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so by finding the path to enlightenment, Siddhartha was led from the pain of suffering and rebirth towards the path of enlightenment and became known as Buddha, or the awakened one.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. So as you can see, like as you're looking at how it all came about,
there's just no substance there.
Right.
Like, where's
it doesn't
the substance?
seem that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, just as we asked who is Jesus to the Hindu, we're going to ask who is Jesus to the Buddhist. So Buddhists generally, they don't have a specific view of or on Jesus Christ. However, some Buddhists have admired Jesus as a historical figure and have drawn parallels between his life and the life of Buddha. So in 2001, if you remember the Dalai Lama, so the Dalai Lama are considered manifestation of Buddha. So this is manifested as Buddha into present day. He said, this quote just blows my mind. He said, Jesus Christ also lived previous lives. So you see, he reached a high state either as a bodhisattva, I guess is how you say that, or an enlightened person through Buddhist practice or something like that.
Wow.
Or something like that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So Buddhists also make offerings to Buddha statues. I think I was talking with our friend Haley last night. I went yesterday and got my nails done, which probably don't look like it because I had everything taken off, but I was sitting there in the nail salon, and I do know a couple of the people that own the salon, and they are Christians. However, they are off visiting family. So there were some other people that were there, but they have little Buddha statues in there. And so I watched one of these ladies, I guess she had prepared some tea in like some little cups, and she takes it over to the Buddha and sets it there.
I've been getting my nails done.
Yeah, and then I looked there, and there were some apples there and different things like that. So
I've always wondered why they do that.
Yeah, so it is a form of offering to Buddha, and they do that to these little Buddha statues. They offer food, fruit, flowers, sometimes lighted candles. And this is also a way of worship because they worship these little statues as deities. So, this verse just came to my mind in Exodus 20, verses 4-6. It says, "Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God." Yeah. So, another one of those things that, especially you ladies that listen, like maybe a lot of you, we don't encounter a lot of Buddhists typically. However, if you go get your nails done or things like that, sometimes you will. And this might open up opportunities while you're sitting there with someone for an hour, rather than scrolling your phone and not making conversation with these people. Maybe it's time that we look up and recognize them as a living soul who needs Jesus. Yeah. And so maybe this episode today will get you thinking of, how can I share the gospel with this person who I see every other week or once a month or whatever, because typically we have the same person that we go to time and time again, and yet we don't engage in conversation. And I know that we don't want to disrespect people or anything like that, but we can lovingly usher them into conversations about their faith. Yeah. And maybe just knowing a little bit about the Hindu faith or the Buddhist faith, you'll be more comfortable in engaging in those conversations.
And I think it's as easy as asking questions, you know, just
not being judgmental.
No, maybe it's, you have any plans this weekend, and telling them about what you've got going on at your church, and seeing their response, and, oh, well, do you go to church? And I mean, just simple questions like that can open a lot of doors.
Right.
But you talking about that, though, I will have to be honest, because it brings back a friend of mine. When I was working, I had a really good friend, and I miss her. Like, the only reason I miss work is because of her. Some of the people I worked with, but her being one of the main ones. And she was from Thailand, so her family was Buddhist. I mean, they're all just kind of brought up in that. But I would have conversations with her about Jesus, and she would seem to agree with me on Jesus, kind of like what you were talking about. You know, they may, oh yeah, I believe in Jesus, you know. And I to this day feel so heavily convicted, because that's kind of where the conversation stopped. We would talk about Jesus, talk about church. I would at least, but I never asked those deeper questions to her.
Right.
Like, you say you believe Jesus, but who is Jesus to you? And I know that you do still have a Buddha necklace, and we kind of talked about that, and she kind of told me, well, it's from my mom, and sentimental, and everything. But I didn't really go in, 'cause you don't want to offend somebody, you don't want to hurt somebody. But I will tell you that while we were so different, like, I loved her dearly. Like, we found so much common ground, and like, we were really good friends. And you realize that you do have things in common with these people, even though so different and from two different places.
Right.
But I still have conviction, though, that I did not witness to her as effectively as I should. Yeah. But I will say that I know that she has told me she listens to the podcast, so I really hope that she does listen, and that she does realize that the reason I was talking to her about those things, or the reason that we even come on and talk about these things, is because we care about each and every person in this entire world. Right. We don't want to see any soul die and go to hell. Yeah. We don't want to see anybody separated from God, because that was never God's intention. So I don't know, I just really think about that, because I had a personal relationship and a friendship with a Buddhist, you know, and that is not all reality for people. But working, especially in the workplaces that we work now, the work environments we work now, they are so diverse, so culturally diverse. You do have more of an opportunity now that you're going to run across somebody who believes like this. Yeah. And here's some ways, you know, that you can
effectively share your faith, but that you can do it in a loving, honest way. But we want to get everyone to a point that you don't shy away from it, though.
That's the thing, being bold in your faith.
Yeah. And, you know, I shared a similar story, although it wasn't a person that I knew personally, when we were talking about the Muslim faith, of how I was given an opportunity to witness to someone, and I blew it.
But you just didn't know.
I didn't know what I didn't know.
Honestly, I didn't either.
Yeah.
You know, and when somebody tells you that, well, I believe in Jesus, you know, like,
you take
I believe
them at their word. Yeah. But that goes back to one of the things that we've talked about throughout other episodes through this series as well, is let's define our terms.
Yes.
You say you believe in Jesus. Tell me who Jesus is to you.
Right.
Tell me what you believe about Jesus.
What's your relationship with Jesus?
Yes. You know? And start asking these open-ended questions,
mm-hmm.
that you're not being judgmental.
Right.
You are not condemning them in any way, but you're getting their wheels turning and getting them thinking about, well, maybe we don't believe in the same Jesus,
right.
or maybe I just believe in Jesus as a teacher, but you're saying that he is
The
Lord,
Messiah,
and
the one and only, the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords.
And that's really not what I believe. So I don't know. I think all of this has been great conversation and getting us to just, I don't know, open up our own hearts and our own minds to be willing to share the gospel with people who believe differently
and who are different.
Yeah.
So what's the purpose for us learning about the Hinduism and Buddhist religions today?
So I want to read this quote. Y'all know I love gotquestions.org. I'm going to read it. It says, "It is only in Christianity that we can know that we are saved.
Yes.
We do not have to rely on some fleeting experience," which is like that state of nirvana that we talked about, "nor do we rely on our own good works or fervent meditation. Nor do we put our faith in a false God whom we are trying to believe into existence. We have a living and true God, an historically anchored faith, an abiding and testable revelation of God, and a guaranteed home in heaven with God." So those are things that we can feel confident in knowing as Christians, and that we can share that confidence with other people. In other words, Hinduism and Buddhism are both based on a feeling. Feelings are wonderful. God gave us feelings. But I can work myself up into a fleeting feeling of emotion. I can think on something hard enough and I can become sad, or I can become happy. I can make myself feel these emotions. But our faith, the faith of Christianity, is based on facts.
That's right.
Again, salvation is not based on our own abilities, our own works, nor is it based on any form of manifestation, but it is a truthful, fact-filled belief in Jesus, the Son of God and the Savior of the world. So evangelism to the Hindu or the Buddhist, it may be difficult. But I think the best way is to build a relationship, as you were talking about, get to know them, understand why they believe what they believe, and then begin to share the historical facts of who Jesus was. And so I just think that that's important in sharing our faith, not just with the Hindu or the Buddhist, but we talked about a Scientologist, all of those things. Where does your faith come from? Why do you believe what you believe? Getting to know people, asking those questions, learning about them, building those relationships, so that when the Lord does open up an opportunity for us to share our faith, we are ready.
That's right.
We're ready and we are willing. All right, Ashley, so what is the challenge for this week?
Our challenge is just a memory verse that we're going to give you guys for this week, as we have every week. But it's Proverbs 3:5-6. And it says, "Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths." And I think that just brings it all into a close, and what us as Christians, how we should be living our lives. Unlike all these other religions, we don't live it for ourselves. We don't try to get self-gain. At least we shouldn't.
We shouldn't.
But we should be allowing God to direct our paths. Take us, the next job, the next step in our life, allowing God to direct all those decisions.
Right.
And that's something I think that's different.
As
well, is we're not relying on our own understanding like these other religions to make those decisions.
I think that's great.
So we hope that you guys have taken something from this. I know sometimes it can be confusing, and it's really hard sometimes to dive into these religions. It's just hard for us. Sometimes it's not easy to get into this, and so that's why we're just kind of looking surface level. But we hope that we've given you something that's been helpful and useful, and that you're able to witness to a coworker or a friend or somebody that you know. So make sure to come back and join us next week. We're getting close to finishing out the series. Just a few episodes left, and you don't want to miss them. Remember, as always, a sincere desire to become purposeful women of God starts with changing focus from me to thee. God bless from our hearts to yours. See ya.
Bye.